We will begin with the Grayrat family and build our way to other characters and their relationship. First, we have the head of the Grayrat family, and not much is known about him, but we know that he had at least 2 sons. One of those 2 sons is Soros Boris Grayrat. In the Fitoa region of the Ashura kingdom, he's a revered figure, and we know him mostly as Eris's grandfather. Soros loved a woman who is currently unknown, and the result of that love was a son he named Philip Boreas Grayrat. Philip married Hilda, and in the Mushoku Tensei verse, when a woman marries a man, she inherits the last name of the man she married. So now she is also a Grayrat. This marriage resulted in a daughter. They named Eris. Eris is Rudy's second cousin, known for her fiery temper, and later on, she will begin following the path of the sword god style. Now let's dial it back a little. Soros had a brother who is unknown at the moment, but what we know about him is that he had 2 sons. One of them was Paul. Paul was an adventurer and adventured a lot. Later on, he decided to settle at Buena Village and married a comrade of his who was adventuring with him called Zenith. This resulted in Rudius being born. We're going to talk about Rudius more in the coming sections. A Rudius is basically a reincarnation of a 40-year-old human who had lived before. After discovering that Rudius has an affinity for magic, his father and mother decided to hire him a teacher. She was called Roxy. Roxy is an important figure in Rudius' life, and she helped him overcome his trauma from his past life. Roxy is the child of Rowing and Ricari Magurdia. She appears to have escaped from her homeland because she felt like she didn't fit in. Roxy kept training Rudius up until he became comfortable with using water magic. Roxy bid farewell to Rudius and his family, and Rudius is now a member of the Roxy religion. When Rudius was a child, his father cheated on his mom with the servant that worked for them called Lilia. And it appears that Lilia is now pregnant. It was decided that Lilia was going to get thrown out of the house, but Rudius interfered to change the outcome, and this resulted in Lily becoming indebted to Rudius. Around this time, Enith was also pregnant, and after the passing of a year, Rudius now has a sister and a stepsister. His sister from Zenith was called Norn, and his stepsister is called Aisha. One thing to know about Lilia is that she was Paul's classmate in a swordsman dojo, but because of her injury, she was forced to lead the swordsman's path. Many years later, she is now Paul's second wife. After some time, Rudius is now in need of money for him to go to school with his childhood friend Sylphie, who we're going to talk about later on. For this, Paul sent Rudius to be a teacher for his cousin's daughter Eris. And after a bit of hiccups due to Eris's temper, Rudius is now the teacher Eris. He is supposed to teach her how to read, basic calculations, and magic. Rudius also began teaching the guard of the family, Elaine, who was a skilled swordswoman of the beast race, and in exchange, Elaine taught Rudius how to handle a sword. Rudius spent quite a bit of time working as a teacher, and the time has come for him to show off in front of his students, so he brought them to an open field. At this moment, the first turning point occurred, and a big teleportation magic was used to transport people from the Fitoa region and scattered them all to different points in the world. Rudius and Eris were teleported together, and they ended up being teleported to the Demon Kingdom, which is the most dangerous place in the world. There, they encountered Rudy from the Super Dia race, a race feared among all people all over the world, and Rudy was taken aback by how Rudius didn't fear him. So Rudy has taken it upon himself to accompany Rudius and Eris to their homeland. The adventure began, and their team, now titled Dead End, went through a lot together. There were 2 objectives for the journey. 1. Restore the lost reputation of the Super 2. Get back to Buena Village in the Fitoa region. So now we are gonna detail a couple of important moments in the journey. One important moment in the journey was when Rudius met with Kishirika Kishirisu, Empress of the Demon Continent, and she gave him a demon eye. Another important point was when the party reached Shiron Kingdom. There, to Rudius's surprise, he encountered his step-sister and managed to save her and his stepmother from Pax Chiron, the seventh prince of the kingdom of Chiron. Pax had a brother who became infatuated with Rudius's art skills. More on this in the coming sections. Dead End also encountered the dragon god Orsted, and this marked the second turning point. Orsted was traveling with another person who was also reincarnated named Nanahoshi. This encounter with Orsted was fatal, and the team was on the brink of death, though Nanahoshi interfered, and this was the reason Rudius was kept alive. The journey of Dead End ended by them reaching the Fitoa region, and that was the time where Ruija bid farewell to them. There, Eris discovered that she loved Rudius. Eris decided to cut her hair and leave Rudius, and this caused Rudius to have severe trauma that caused him to get AIDS. Rudius, losing hope in the world, began to wander left and right, and he encountered the adventurer team Counter Arrow. Sarah, a member of the team, has developed feelings for Rudius, and because of Rudius's ed, things didn't go as good as they may have gotten. This was a low point in Rudius's life, so he decided to end it all. But Soldat, a member of the party, stepped in and saved him, and he began taking him with him adventuring. Around this time, Elenalise, a former comrade of Paul, came to Rudius, and it was decided that they will attend the University of Magic in the hope of him recovering from his illness. Rudius joined the class of special students. There he encountered Zenoba, who was sent here as a punishment for him for attacking his brother at home. Cliff, who has a grudge on Rudius because he loved Eris, who in turn loved Rudius. Linnea and Persina, who are members of the beast race, so they have a connection with Ghislaine. Rudius also encountered Fitz and Luke, two people who are responsible for guarding Princess Ariel. Fitz is the same as Sylphie, Rudius's childhood friend, but because of the changed hair and changed name and the glasses she wore, Rudius didn't recognize. Around this time, Zenoba asked Rudius to teach him how to create dolls, but because Zenoba didn't have an affinity for magic, this proved to be hard. Rudius asked Fitz about this, and she suggested they hire a slave and teach her how to create dolls. So the team at last settled on Juliet, and they began raising her. After some time at the academy, it appears that Cliff fell in love with Rudius's comrade Elenalise and made it his life mission to release her from the curse she had. Badigadi, a demon and fiancé to Kisharika, the empress of the demon continent, challenged Rudius to a duel, and when he lost, he began working as a teacher for the university. Now remember that Paul's father had two sons. One of them is Paul, and the second is Pailmon. This person, in turn, had a son he named Luke. Lastly, we have Sylphie, Rudius's childhood friend. Later on, Rudius and Sylphie married, and Ruijerd has been hired by Paul to deliver his daughters to Rudius